Until this year, most of us thought that certain demons had been born, lived, and died only in the 20th century just ended. Their names were genocide, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing. Their locations were different each time. Turkey in 1915, when the Turkish government organized the killing of 1 million Armenians. Continental Europe between 1939 and 1945, when Nazis and their collaborators killed 6 million Jews. Cambodia in 1975, when the Khmer Rouge government executed or killed by enforced hardship 1 million of its own people. Bosnia between 1992 and 1995, where over 200,000 died in what the Bosnian Serbs called ethnic cleansing. Iraq in the late 1980s and 1990s, when Saddam Hussein's regime shot and gassed Kurds and Marsh Arabs, crimes for which he was charged with genocide by an Iraqi court on July 1st of this year. Rwanda, when in just over a month, beginning in April 1994, 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus were murdered at the direction of the government. But this is the 21st century, a new millennium. Yet the demons are still with us. In Darfur, a province in the western Sudan, we are witnessing the 21st century's first attempted genocide. The destruction of Darfur society, where herders and farmers, pastoralists and agriculturalists had lived together for centuries, in cooperative, complementary relationships and in conflict, reached a new phase of intensity in 1989, when the regime in Khartoum, Sudan's capital, began to redefine Sudanese society. It was to become a pure Arab society whose population would eventually be composed of only those who were able to trace, through different mythical stories, their origins to the core Arab countries, like Saudi Arabia. To achieve this long-range objective, rulers of the Sudanese state have marked the indigenous population of Darfur as the other, the Zurgas, the blacks, even though they themselves have skin as dark as the groups they want to exclude. These Zurgas are therefore a standing threat to the homogeneity of the pure Arab society they hope to create. In other words, the Arabism of Sudan, which has generated Africanism as an opposing force, is cultural. That is, what people think they are, the way they behave, rather than physical. And it is gradually dominating Sudanese society because it became part of the official political discourse, at least outside of the rebellious South. In Darfur, where about 2/3 of the people identified themselves as other than Arab, political leaders who claimed an Arab identity obscured this Arabism with the political rhetoric of Islamism, of building a Muslim state. Almost everyone in Darfur, whatever their tribe or clan, is a Muslim. A commitment to Islamic solidarity helps to explain why, when Sudan began almost half a century of intermittent civil war after becoming independent in 1956, hundreds of Fur, Zagawa, Masalit, and other non-Arab Africans fought for the north of Sudan against the Christian separatists in the south. The discrimination that these men encountered in the army and police, where their Arab comrades were regularly promoted faster, was only one of the grievances that built up as the years of war and brief ceasefire wore on. The attacks of the Janjaweed, Arab militias on horses or camels, became more frequent and more destructive. Yet the government never protected the Africans of Darfur from the attacks, nor did it prosecute the attackers. What came next was documented by David Goff in a film distributed by the United Nations.
Fired by long-standing grievances against the state and worried that the peace process between the government and southern-based rebels would continue to leave their province isolated and underdeveloped and deny them a share of the country's newfound oil wealth, two rebel groups sprung up in Darfur in early 2003. Pro-government militias charged with combating the rebels then launched a retaliatory campaign of murder and forced displacement, which has left thousands dead and as many as 1 million homeless. Entire villages and towns now stand empty, while scores of villages have been destroyed by the militias, or the Janjaweed as they have become collectively known. Houses have been burned, livestock stolen, and children abducted in a scorched earth policy that has sparked a mass exodus of people. 110,000 are thought to have reached neighboring Chad, but the vast majority are now displaced within Sudan.
And finally, when they found their own homes destroyed, their families killed or driven out, Darfurian soldiers of the Sudanese army joined the Darfur rebels. The Sudanese government's campaign against the rebels coordinated the reinforcement and rearmament of the Janjaweed militias with attacks by planes and military vehicles, which were first captured on film by David Goff.
أيها الأخوة المشاهدون شاهدوا ثلاثة الأنتلوب هذه المدينة إنه مدينة كارنوي تحترق تحت دانات الانتنوف. أيها الأخوة المشاهدين هذه أثر الضربة التي خطفت هذا المكان وكما تشاهدون هذا المنزل مشتعلا.
So far, this operation has killed about 30,000 black African citizens of the Darfur region, targeting mainly the Masalit, Fur, and Zagawa peoples. They are in places, in camps, where most of them may never be able to return to the land that has been critical to their life as independent peoples, as peoples who contribute their lives and their ways of living to the variety of the human fabric. The non-Arab Africans of Darfur are at risk of disappearance or of being severely diminished as peoples with distinct cultures. This is destruction, in whole or in part, of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group as such. And that is the definition of genocide, the wording of the International Convention of 1948. The underlying idea of this convention is that the human condition is one of diversity, with a rich variety of groups, languages, cultures. Actions that diminish these groups, weaken their ability to survive and to flourish, actions that remove the conditions of their survival, are actions that contribute to genocide, that indicate that the crime of genocide has been committed.